everyone, my name is Alexandra and I'm a watercolor artist. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint some super simple watercolor trees, and while we're doing that we're going to go over some really essential basic watercolor techniques. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need 2 cups of water. I have one for clean, one for dirty water, a napkin for drying your paintbrushes. For paintbrushes today, I'm using Princeton's numbers 8 and 6. They're both round brushes. Paper, I have 140 pound cold press watercolor paper. And for paint, I'm using Art Philosophy & Co.'s Terrain palette. But for this tutorial, you guys can honestly use whatever paint that you would like. The point more so is techniques that we'll be learning while painting our trees. So now that we have all of our supplies, to start, what I'm gonna get you guys to do is with your larger paintbrush, we are going to start with a wet on dry watercolor technique. So what I want you guys to do is clean off your brush, and then you're gonna pick whatever color you want to start with. So just because we're heading into the winter season, I'm gonna pick a little bit more Christmassy colors specifically for this painting. Meaning I'm actually gonna go into a little bit more of a red paint color here. So I'm making it nice and watered down. It's sort of a creamy consistency here. And now that I've done that on my paper, I'm just gonna start at the center, and what we are doing is simply just painting a triangle. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water there just because I didn't quite have enough. And I'm using my brush to paint a super simple triangle. So now this technique is called wet on dry, specifically because my paintbrush is wet with paint on it, but the paper that is below it is dry. So the key with this is making sure that you have enough water and paint on your brush to get these really nice, smooth lines. All right, now that we've done our first tree, I am gonna add some extra detail and color to it. So going into my sourwood red, and I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of my maple orange, making it a little bit more pigmented. I'm actually just gonna paint over where I've already painted. And the idea with this is that it's adding some more depth into my triangle here. And as it dries, you guys will be able to see so much more of the difference. So I can just dot in my color there. So that is a wet on wet technique. I'm gonna show you guys another way we can do a wet on wet technique, and that is by starting to paint on our paper with just water. So with my brush, I've rinsed it in my clean water, and I'm gonna do a second triangle right beside this one, and I kind of wanna vary them a little bit in size and shape. So this one, I'm doing a tall, skinny triangle, and I very intentionally am attaching it to my tree that's right beside, because I actually want the colors to bleed into each other here. So you guys won't be able to see what I'm painting just yet, but as soon as I add color, you'll be able to see. So this paintbrush is a little bit too big for what I want, so I'm switching to my number 6 brush. I'm gonna go into my yellow color here, sort of a gold color, and I'm putting it directly into where the water is. So you can see right away, it's really starting to bleed in, and it's only going to go where the water is. And I've sort of attached it to my other tree beside here because I actually want the colors to mix together just a little bit. So now if I wanted to, I could even take some red paint here, and I could mix a little bit into it as well and kind of just blend these 2 trees together. Now while I'm going and everything is still wet, we're gonna add a green tree right beside. And again, I can change the shape up a bit. This one I might do a shorter, wider one. I'm using a wet on dry technique. So paintbrush is wet, paper is dry. I'm painting my triangle, and then I'm just going and I'm filling it all in. Now I actually just want to tone down the color of my tree just a little bit, so I can go in with a more muted green and just go on top of it. Now moving to the left side here to sort of fill it out a little bit more, I'm gonna add in another green tree. This one I'm gonna do a little bit more neutral, but I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of a glazing technique for this one rather than sort of what we had here where it just bled into each other. And that is where I'm gonna actually just paint, starting with that wet on wet technique, but I'm going directly over top of the tree that I've already painted. I didn't quite have enough water on there, so we'll just mix some more. Oh, and I smudged it. Let me just straighten that out. It's a good thing that the main purpose of this video is for you guys to learn techniques. I'll show you guys how to clean up that smudge in just a second here. So with my green paint, I'm just going directly over top of this tree that I've already painted. Now why this is a glazing technique is because it's just painting one color on top of another, so you get this really neat sort of translucent effect. So as we're painting right now, I know it looks a little bit random with our triangles, but we're gonna go in and add some details with pen after to make it look like a really cute either Christmas painting or honestly something that I love to use for Christmas cards specifically. Okay, so now that I have gone ahead and painted that in, I'm gonna show you guys how to clean up where I smudged a little bit here. So rinsing my brush in the clean water, drying it off on my napkin, and then I'm actually just painting right over top of where that smudge is until the color just about disappears, and then I can use my napkin to clean it up. So now we'll add one more tree in here. I'm gonna go with that gold color again. And this time we're just gonna let them bleed into each other with that little bit of overlap. All right, so now that we've painted our nice lineup of trees, you guys can kind of see the different effects that you get just by using the different techniques. This is a super simple way to practice them. Another way that I like to suggest to students to practice is to either paint circles in a row, and you can practice painting two that are wet and allowing the colors to bleed into each other, or having them sort of overlapping, and practice this kind of glazing technique. When you're using glazing specifically, you'll notice that it's going to turn out different depending on what colors you have. So say if I was to paint this yellow directly on top of the red tree here, we would end up with more of an orange triangle that's overlapping, versus green and red obviously makes kind of more of a gray color. But again, play around with different colors with this and you guys can see sort of what it turns out to look like. So we've done that, we've worked on our painting techniques. Now let's turn this into something that you guys can use as a super cute Christmas card or painting or something along those lines. So I have a fine liner here. I have one of the Micron brands. It's just one of the wider pens. So I'm actually just gonna go and just start outlining my trees. And I don't mind if the pen isn't necessarily directly over top. And there's some paint kind of showing on either side. But we're just gonna start by outlining our trees. This is also something that if you guys are looking for a simple Christmas craft to do with your kids, it's something that's super easy because all they really have to do is paint some triangles. Okay, so now we've got all of those lines drawn. If I want, I can add a star to one of my trees. I have that one floating a little bit on top, but that's okay. I might add one as well to this tree over here. Does not have to be perfect. We're sort of going with more of the doodle look for this one specifically. If I want to as well, I can add Christmas lights to some of my trees. So I'm going to string across the lights, and then we'll add some color into them as we go. But I can just draw little circles as the light bulbs. So I like to sort of alternate how I decorate each tree, and then it'll give this really nice cohesive look. So I'll do this one with the lights as well. Again, not too concerned about how straight everything is. Just scattering little circles onto it. And then we might as well do our last one the same, just to carry through that same theme. Just really loose little circles here. All right, so already that went from looking like 5 random triangles in a row to little Christmas trees. So now we're gonna add some paint and color to them. So for our stars, I'll go into my sassafras yellow, and I'm just gonna paint them in. I specifically used a waterproof pen so that the black shouldn't bleed too much. As long as I don't put too much water in it, it might bleed just a little bit. And now with our lights, I'm gonna go in directly onto my paint pan here so I can get a nice bright color. And we'll just add some yellow in. And then I'll do some red for my green and yellow trees. And then lastly, we'll add some green lights in for our other 2. Now, if you guys are wanting to use this as either a card or a print, something that you definitely could do, which is sort of why I offset my trees up higher, is write Merry Christmas along the bottom. But otherwise, you guys are all done with this super simple, super practical, easy way to just practice using different techniques, watercolor, paint control, things like that. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you guys want more short tutorials that are really simple on watercolor techniques for practice purposes specifically, then do let me know, leave a comment below. Otherwise, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next time.